Hello guys, welcome back to our favorite economic education channel, Artificial and Facts. In this video, we'll learn about consumer behavior through indifference curve approaches. In this video, we'll learn how we, as consumer, react or behave towards our own choices that constrained by our budget constraint. So, without further ado, let's dive into this topic of video. So, in this video, we have our topics, or we call them as study objective, which are: the first one is indifference curve and indifference map, the second one is marginal rate of substitution or MRS, the third is properties of indifference curve, the fourth is price line or budget line, and the last one, the fifth, is consumer equilibrium. So what are you waiting for? Let's go! So now we dive into the first topic in our video, which is indifference curve. A popular alternative to marginal utility analysis of demand is the indifference curve analysis. This is based on consumer preference and belief that we cannot quantitatively measure human satisfaction in monetary terms. This approach assigns an order to consumer preference rather than measure them in terms of money. Let's us take a look. So, first thing first, what is an indifference curve? An indifference curve is a curve that represents all the combination of goods that give the same satisfaction to the consumer. Since all the combination give the same amount of satisfaction, the consumer prefers them equally. Hence the name, you guess it, indifference curve. There are several assumptions to indifference curve analysis. The first one is rationality of consumer. The consumer is rational and aims at maximizing his total satisfaction. The second is ordinal utility. This can be expressed ordinally. For example, the consumer is able to tell only order of his preference. The third is non-satiety. The consumer is not oversupplied with goods in question. The fourth is transitivity of choice, means that if a consumer prefers A to B and B to C, he must prefer A to C. And the fifth is consistency of choice. It means that if a consumer prefers A to B in one period, he will not prefer B to A in another period or treat them as equal. And the last one is the sixth, diminishing marginal rate of substitution. So now, there's no need to worry because we provide you the indifference curve example. Here's an example to understand the indifference curve better. Peter has 1 unit of food and 12 units of clothing. Now, we ask Peter how many units of clothing is he willing to give up in exchange for an additional unit of food so that his level of satisfaction remains unchanged. Peter agrees to give up 6 units of clothing for an additional unit of food. Hence, we have two combinations of food and clothing giving equal satisfaction to Peter as follows: 1 unit of food and 12 units of clothing, 2 units of food and 6 units of clothing. By asking him similar question, we get first combination as in the table. And also the diagram shows an indifference curve, or IC. Any combination lying on this curve give the same level of consumer satisfaction. Another name for this curve is iso-utility curve. And now we discuss about indifference map. An indifference map represents a group of indifference curves, each of which express a given level of satisfaction. We know that a consumer is indifferent among the combination lying on the same indifference curve. If an indifference curve shifts to the right, the level of satisfaction goes on increasing. This is because a higher level of curve implies a higher level of satisfaction. Therefore, from the point of view of satisfaction, indifference curve 3 is greater than indifference curve 2 and indifference curve 2 is greater than indifference curve 1. And now we came to the second topic of our video, which is marginal rate of substitution, or MRS. Marginal rate of substitution is the rate at which an individual must give up good A in order to obtain one more unit of good B, while keeping their overall utility or overall satisfaction constant. We provide you an example. In this example, Peter initially gave up 6 units of clothing to get an extra unit of food. Hence, the MRS is 6. Similarly, for subsequent exchange, the MRS is 2 and 1 respectively. Therefore, the MRS of X for Y is the amount of Y whose loss can be compensated by a unit gain of X, keeping their satisfaction the same. Interestingly, as Peter accumulates more units of foods, the MRS starts falling, means that he is prepared to give up fewer units of clothing for food. There are two main reasons for this. The first one is as Peter gets more units of food, his intensity of desire for additional units of food starts to decreasing. The second is most of the goods are imperfect substitute for one another. If they could substitute for one another perfectly, then MRS would remain constant. Whoa! Hello Spearman. It's very surprising for me to see you appeared in this video. Do you have something to remind me? I almost forgot the third topic of our video, which is properties of an indifference curve, or IC. An indifference curve has a negative slope. It slopes downward to the right. This signifies that when the quantity of one commodity in combination is increased, the amount of the other commodity is reduced. This is essential for the level of satisfaction to remain the same on an indifference curve. The second property of an indifference curve is indifference curves are always convex to the origin. From our discussion before, we understand that as Peter substitutes clothing for food, he is willing to part with less and less of clothing. This is the diminishing marginal rate of substitution. The rate gives a convex shape to the indifference curve. However, there are two extreme scenarios. The first scenario is when two commodities are perfect substitute for each other. In this case, the indifference curve is a straight line, where MRS is constant. And the second scenario is when the two goods are perfect complementary goods. An example of such good would be gasoline and water in a car. In such cases, the IC will be L-shaped and convex to the origin. Bye, Spider-Man. Whoa, is that you, Iron Man? It's very unlikely for me to see you here, Iron Man, cause I thought you were dead. Am I? Never mind. Let's focus to the topic in this video. So, indifference curves never intersect or become tangent to each other. Two indifference curves will never intersect each other, as you can see in this graph. Also, they need not be parallel to each other either. In this graph, it shows us that two indifference curves intersecting each other at point A. Since point A and B lie on indifference curve 1, they give the same level of satisfaction to an individual. Similarly, points A and C give the same satisfaction level as they lie on indifference curve 2. Therefore, we can imply that B and C offer the same level of satisfaction, which is logically absurd. Hence, no two indifference curves can touch or intersect each other. Goodbye, Iron Man. Don't forget that I love you 3000 also, man. Hi, buddy. You look smart. can you remind me of the next properties of indifference curve? Well, thank you. So the next properties of indifference curve is higher indifference curve represents higher satisfaction. This is because the combination lying in higher indifference curve contain more of either one or both goods, and more goods are preferred to less of them, like what I have already explained earlier in this video in Indifference Map topic. An IC does not touch the axis. This is not possible because of our assumption that a consumer consider different combination of two commodities and want both of them. As you can see in this graph, if the curve touches either of the axes, then it means that the person is satisfied with only one commodity and does not want the other, which is contrary to our assumption. Oh, hi there, Deadpool. Don't you dare disturb our video, okay? Just stay put and listen to what I'm saying. So now, it's price line or budget line. The budget line shows all those combination of two goods which the consumer can buy and spending his given money or income on two goods at their given prices. Since a higher indifference curve represents a higher level of satisfaction, a consumer will try to reach the highest possible indifference curve to maximize his satisfaction. In order to do so, he has to buy more goods and has to work under the following two constraints. The first constraint is he has to pay the price for the goods, and the second constraint is he has limited income, restricting the availability of money for purchasing these goods. Bye, Deadpool. See you. Oh, hi, Patrick. Why are you look so happy? Now I know why. Because in this video, we'll provide you the graphical representation of price line or budget line. As you can see in here, a budget line shows all possible combination of two goods that a consumer can buy within the funds available to him at the given prices of the goods. All combinations that are within his reach lie in the budget line. But the point outside the given price, which is point H, will be beyond the reach of the consumer. On the other hand, the point below the given price line, which is point K, shows the underspending of the consumer. See you on Bikini Bottom, Patrick. So now guys, we finally made it to the last topic in this video, which is consumer equilibrium. Consumer equilibrium will be reached when he or the person is deriving maximum possible satisfaction from the goods and is in no position to rearrange his purchases of goods. The indifference map, in combination with the budget line, allow us to determine the one combination of goods and services that the consumer most wants and is able to purchase. Oh, hi there, Scooby-Doo. It's very nice to see you in here. So now, we will provide you the graphical representation of consumer equilibrium. As you can see in here, this is the graphical representation of consumer equilibrium. At the tangency point of K, the slopes of the price line PL and indifference curve IC3 are equal. Slope of indifference curve shows that MRS of x for y, MRS xy. At equilibrium point K, MRS xy equals MUx divided by MUy equals Px over Py. Goodbye, Scooby-Doo, you really made my childhood, man. Thank you. So, the point of this video is on us, on how we as consumers spend our limited money on buying things that give the same amount of satisfaction. So from now on, let's consider about how we spend our money Do we get the same amount of satisfaction if we buy good or services A instead of good or services B? Do we really spend our money for the things that satisfy our daily needs, or on things that only satisfy our eyes? Well, it's all up to us because it's our choices. So, now you have come to the end of this video. You have already learned about consumer behavior through indifference curve approaches. I really hope that you really understand about how we as consumers behave or react to our own choices that constrained by our budget's constraint. Especially, I really hope that you understand about the indifference curve. And now I want to, whoa, is that Scarlet Witch? I really hope that she's still alive anyway, but now I want to say thank you to you all that have watched this video from the beginning until the very end. I want to say thank you to you all, and please like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell so that you don't miss the next video from Artificial and Facts channel. Goodbye, see you again.